Good evening. Today is Thursday, May 16th, 2019. The time is 6:30 p.m. The regular meeting of the Greensburg Redevelopment Commission is called to order. At this time, please silence your electronic devices. If everybody would stand, we'll begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
To comply with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the city requests that participants in this meeting complete a voluntary anonymous survey that is available on the table in the back of the room. Judy, would you conduct roll call, please?
Yes. David Weigel.
Present.
Adam Weinzel. Absent. Ken Dornick.
Present.
Karen Covington. Absent. Jody Kaufman. Here. Shannon Wood. Absent.
Thank you. Minutes of our April 11th, 2019 special meeting. Are there any corrections to the minutes? If there are not any corrections to the minutes, they stand approved as presented. First item of business on our agenda is to have Mr. Jason Semler from Baker Tilley give us our annual TIF report.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Jason Semler from Baker Tilley. And every couple of years, we've come in front of you to kind of give you an update of your tax increment that you've collected in your allocation area, and kind of compare that to the debt service, kind of compare it to what we've anticipated you'd collect to see if what you're actually collecting is in line with what you estimated. And then also just to answer any questions. This year's a little unique. I think I was here last winter, and kind of talked about some of the new legislation that was passed last spring in 2018. That now the Regional Commission is required to have a meeting once a year and provide the information that you've kind of done in the past. But then also provide a little bit of additional information, kind of going over a budget for each allocation area that you have. Talk about kind of some of the projects that you want to fund, kind of long-term plans of the allocation area, and then also provide kind of an impact analysis of what the allocation area and capturing that growth in assessed value has or could have on the overlapping tax units. So I'll go through this report and try to answer those questions for you. But if you do have any questions as I'm going through this, feel free to stop me, and I'd be happy to address those questions at that time. Again, this report, I want this to be a tool for you to use, kind of a place to kind of look back at some history of the area. So on page 1, I do have a little general comments that talks about when the TIF area was created and expanded. So I have a little bit of dialogue there. The area was originally created in 2000, and it has to expire in 2030, has a 30-year life. You did expand the area in 2006, and it has a 30-year life as well, and it could expire in 2036. So I talk a little bit about that. I talk about the bonds that you have outstanding that were issued in 2014, in the amount of $9.5 million. As you know, it is a draw bond, and kind of talk about that later, but you haven't drawn all the principal down at this time, but that is still outstanding, and that's what the tax increment is using to be, besides your pay-as-you-go projects that you have, it's paying the principal interest on those bonds. So talk a little bit about that as well. But page 2, I get into the numbers, calculation of the tax increment. So page 2 looks at the assessed value from both the original area and the expansion. So you can see there in 2018, kind of look at the middle of the page, there's 49.1 was $49.2 million of assessed value in your allocation area. The base assessed value, that was there when the areas were first created, was 5.7 million. So in 2018, the growth of the increment was $43.4 million. So you take that times the tax rate, plus your circuit breaker losses. For 2018, we would expect or estimate that you collect about $1,019,000. And you actually collected $1,008,000. So a very good collection rate. So it could be a little delinquencies, could be a little correction of errors, appeals in there, but overall collected almost 100% of what we thought you would collect. So pleased with that. And then as you can see in 2019 and 2020, your tax increment is estimated to grow a little bit each year. And a lot of that has to do with the abatements. As you can see at the top of the page, there's 2 companies that have property tax abatements. So as those property tax abatements roll off and those property taxes are phased in, that's additional tax increment that you as the Redevelopment Commission collects. So you can see 2022, 2031, we're expected that tax increment to grow to about $1,030,000 a year. And then you see in 2032 that tax increment drops off significantly to about $400,000 because that's when the original area ends and all you'll be capturing is the expansion area. So about 2031, if you continue capturing this S value to its maturity, you'll be capturing about $48 million. That 2031, when the original area expires, about 26 million of assessed value will flow through to the tax base. We'll kind of talk about that here in a little bit. But based upon that revenue stream, again, that's usually being used to pay the bonds, and I've showed that on page 3. Again, the original bond issue amount was $9.5 million. You've drawn down about $2.2 million. There's about 5.5, almost 5.6 million that can still be drawn down. And as you did last month, originally when you structured these bonds in 2014, you had to draw down the entire amount by August of 2019, so August of this year. But you extended that to August of 23, from my understanding. So you can see that 3.27% rate. That's still an exceptional rate in today's market for a pure TIF bond. So and back then it was an exceptional rate as well. But you can see right now it's about assuming you had drawn down all the principal that you could, there'd be 7.8 million of principal outstanding, and you can kind of see the repayment structure on the far right. Now your actual payments will be a little bit less than that because you haven't drawn down all the funds. But starting in 2023, assuming you do draw down everything, those would be your actual payments. So it'll be a little bit under $600,000 this year. But once you draw down all the principal, it'll be about $737,000 to $40,000 a year in principal and interest. So on page 4, we compared that tax increment that we talked about that we're projecting for you and compared it to the principal and interest on the bonds. It shows you how much you have remaining each year. And I would add the estimated tax increment that we're showing here. That's only assessed value that based upon development and businesses that are in the area and abatements rolling off. There's no projections of any increase to the new development. So if anything does happen between now and forthcoming years, that's just going to be above and beyond what we're showing here. So again, about $300,000 of remaining tax increment each year after you make your bond payments. So on the next page, one of the new requirements is to kind of show up a budget. And we worked with the President's Commission to kind of put this together. So here you have your estimated tax increment. We've subtracted out your annual principal and interest payments, your debt service payments. We allowed an amount for other services and charges. It's kind of professional fees, engineering fees for studies. We've also allowed an amount for capital outlays as businesses and companies come before you and ask for assistance or as you pay for capital projects. This is kind of beyond Veterans Parkway, which you've issued the bonds for. These are kind of other projects. We allowed $200,000 for that each year. So as you can see, your revenue is about $1 million. Your expenses about $800,000 to $900,000 a year. So with that, this year have an excess of about $200,000. But then after that, we're looking at an excess of about $67,000 a year. And you can kind of see that your balances are accumulating over the years with that amount, which is a good thing because we talked about, on page 6, we listed some projects that the Redevelopment Commission would like to fund with the tax increment, partly with the bonds that were issued in earlier 2015. That you have remaining to draw down, but also with the cash that you're accumulating that you have on hand. We've listed the projects that you can, based upon your plan, based upon the need, based upon the available TIF, these are projects that you could fund. So we have Veterans, finished Veterans Way, Freeland Road, finished Lincoln Street, reconstruction of Moscow Road, constructed multi-use path, Northern Michigan Avenue. So mostly just, again, public infrastructure road use, which is what you've been using your TIF for the last few years. So just to continue that long-term plan that the Redevelopment Commission had when the area was first created. And then page 7, we tried to calculate what the impact would be if you were to pass through $1 million and what that would have, what kind of impact that would have on the overlapping taxing units. So this is just kind of for illustration. So the top of the schedule there, you see the various units that make up the Greensburg taxing district. So you have the county, you have Washington Township, you have the city, the school, the library. So you see all those tax rates added up equal the $2.55 tax rate for the city of Greensburg. You also see the tax base, the net assessed value. So if you look at the city of Greensburg, you see the tax base of the city is $455 million. So that's all the assessed value, homes, businesses, all the assessed value that's not captured as tax increment. And those taxes, or that assessed value, is included in the tax base to pay for the taxes and pay for the budget that funds the city. So if you look at the city's budget of $4.7 million, that's what the state allows the city to levy of its budget to be paid from property taxes. So the city's at its maximum levy, so the city can't go above that amount. Same thing for the schools and the other units. More likely they're also at their maximum levy, so these are all dictated by the state. So if you look at the city's levy of $4.7 million, you look at the tax base of $455 million, it takes the tax rate of $1.04 on all the taxpayers in the city to be able to fund that $4.7 million budget based upon your assessed value. And we've done that for all the various units. The two rates that don't quite work that way are the cum cap development rates. The city has a rate, a cum cap development rate, and so does the county. For those funds, we call them rate-driven funds, is you can change that rate or keep it at its maximum. So as assessed value grows or decreases, that actually changes the amount of revenue that the city receives. So for the city of Greensburg, your tax rate is 0.0481. Takes that times the tax base of $455 million, and the city receives $218,000 in its CCD fund. And then we showed for $1 million of revenue that you capture, that generates about $25,000 of tax increment. So what we've tried to show at the bottom of the schedule is, what if you didn't want to capture that $1 million and you pass it through to the taxing units that pass through that assessed value? What would be the impact to the school, to the city, to the library, to the county? So as you can see at the bottom of the page, if you kind of look at the city again, the budget is $4.7 million. It doesn't matter that you pass through that $1 million. Just like it wouldn't matter if you had a second Honda plant come to the county. The state's still going to say that you can't raise more than $4.7 million for that budget. But what does happen is your tax base grows by $1 million. So instead of your tax base being $455 million, now it's $456 million. So since your tax base grew by $1 million, you still have the same budget. Now you only need a tax rate of $1.03. So the city's tax rate would go down by about 0.002 cents. So we did that for all the units. So like the schools rate would go down 0.001, the library would go down 0.002. Then we did that for all the units. And you can see that the tax rate, if you were to pass through $1 million, the tax rate would go down 0.0039, so less than a penny. The only increase in revenue that you would see for these units would be in your CCD funds, because I said those are rate driven. As assessed value increases, you would generate some additional revenue. So the city would see an additional $481, and the county would receive an additional $159. So by giving up $1 million, or by the redevelopment commission kind of giving up $25,000 of tax income that it could collect, you could see a tax rate reduction of 0.0039 and additional revenue of $640. One thing that we didn't quantify, we talked about it, but one thing that we didn't quantify we could, was that with decreases in tax rates, that can offset reductions in circuit breaker losses. So there could be some additional benefit from that as well that we didn't quantify in this report, but did want to bring that to your attention, that there could be some additional benefit by the reduction in tax rate. But I think this schedule is important because I know there's some miscommunications on TIF and how TIF works and how property taxes work. But I know just going from community to community doing these reports, a lot of people think that if you were to pass through that $1 million and no longer calculate or collect that $25,000 in TIF, that $25,000 is what gets allocated to the various units. So the city would get part of that $25,000, the school would get part of that $25,000, the county would get part of that $25,000, and that's not how it works. They just all get that additional $1 million of assessed value that's used to help reduce tax rates. And that's just because Indiana has a very complicated property tax structure, which keeps me in business. And the next couple of schedules, just some historical information. Page 8, just showing the history of the tax increment that's collected over the years, so you can see how it has grown. Been pretty consistent the last few years. And then page 9 has your account balance as of May 6th. But I'd say, and you guys know this, you've been funding projects for quite some time, but I think the TIF area has been very healthy. It's done what we intended to do when it was first created. You guys have done a lot of good projects with the revenues you have collected. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
So do you do that calculation for all TIF districts, assuming $1 million?
No, it's kind of case by case. Some ask us to look at what it would look like when the TIF area ends and everything gets passed through. Some have asked to do $1 million, $10 million. It varies between clients.
I didn't know if somebody had requested that.
I think that's what we just talked about. Just for an illustration, we used $1 million because legally you couldn't pass through everything right now because of the bonds outstanding. So we just kind of showed $1 million that way. It's not a 1-to-1, but it's 0.03. If you did 1 million, if you did 10 million, just multiply that by 10. If you want to do 20 million, so that's kind of how we did $1 million. But yeah, there was no special reason.
Judy, do you have any questions? No? Good, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
Next item on our agenda, update of project status for Veterans Way Phase 2. Mr. May.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Well, I'm sad to stand here again this month and say there's not a lot to report. We did have our utility coordination meeting last month and met with, I think there's 4 involved utilities that will relocate Veteran, ETC, Frontier, and another communication company whose name escapes me at the moment. They have been given their notice to proceed with their work. We have the money secured for reimbursement for a veteran who has an eligible reimbursable cost for their relocation work, and those utilities are in the process of finalizing their plans and ordering their materials and scheduling work. That should happen sometime this summer. We'll get all of those moved out of the way and have that much accomplished. We still are working on the last parcel, and I believe that is inching forward, but unfortunately not running forward. I believe it to be heading the correct direction, but just a process to work through.
Any questions about phase two? Well, don't go away. How about a report on Lincoln Street?
Lincoln Street, as we're all aware, was open to traffic on, I think it was the 16th of April.
Yeah.
We discovered some issues with the ride quality of the pavement, and our contractor has worked on that actually 2 or 3 times. This very day, we checked the smoothness per the specifications, and the road is generally in compliance with the spec. There is some noticeable color and texture differential in the areas that were repaired versus the rest of the pavement. I've heard a few comments about that. It's my belief, my expectation that given a little bit of time, that particularly the textural differentiation will become much less noticeable, if not totally less notable. As the bitumen in asphalt is viscous, and it will keep moving kind of literally forever. And so over amount of time of both warmer temperatures and traffic traveling over the pavement, you see some voids in the areas that have been repaired, and those will kind of close up over time, and you won't notice them very much, if at all. And I think the color as well. The street was paved maybe 5 weeks ago, tomorrow, just a little bit over a month. And so it's a month older than the areas that were repaired, and I think that color differentiation over a little bit of time will fade dramatically. I think that part of it will be near as noticeable. And then the last question I get from time to time is the durability of the repairs. Because of the nature of the repair, what was done was we heated the existing asphalt, they loosened a little bit of it, they added or removed material as necessary to repair any variation that was out of spec. And because the nature of the repair wasn't one where we tried to apply new material in a thin layer on top of the existing, but by heating and working a little bit the very top of the original pavement, we mixed the new material in with the existing, and a very simplified explanation may say that we knitted it together. So it's not just an application of additional material on top of what was out there. It should be bonded. I am satisfied with the nature of the repair, and I have good expectations that will not produce a durability issue. So I think where we are is okay. We've got a couple of items left on the punch list. We had to tear up a little bit of the pavement markings in one place to repair the pavement, so they will come back and make some repairs to the pavement markings. And we're working with a situation on the street lights at Walnut Street where we had some damage to a conduit, and that needs to be repaired. And when that's all behind us, the punch list should be cleaned up and everything should be good to go. So one of the things I brought to you this evening is the proposed final change order, which you do not sign. That will go before the Board of Works, but you do fund that. And so my request of you would be, and I've also brought the 10th and final pay application for the contract. My request of you would be to approve the funding so that we may go to the Board of Work, approve the funding conditional upon the Board of Works entering into this final change order. And then we can go to the Board of Works and seek their execution agreement to the final change order. We would not make payment. Although you have a claim to consider this evening for payment on this, we would not make payment until that final change order is executed, which would occur the first Monday in June. And our motivation for taking this route is that we strongly desire to close this project out within not before the end of June, because that will make us eligible to apply for more CCMG funds in July. If you don't like my proposal, you could consider a special meeting on or after the time of Board of Works meeting. And so that's an alternative way of getting where we'd like to get. We need to deliver the check to the contractor, get him to deposit the check, get us a return check for proof of payment that NDOT requires. And that's the motivation for moving this process forward as efficiently as possible. The final contract amount, the original contract amount was $1,083,283.95, and the proposed final contract amount is $1,386,138.34. We've had 4 change orders to date, and they came to a total of $108,000. We're asking for an additional $16,000 and change in this final pay application. And also we had $177,681, and what we often refer to as underruns and overruns, where for different reasons units were more, and in some cases less than what we had set up in the original contract. And attached as the last page, if you care, is Exhibit 1, which shows individual pay items and where we had increases and where we had decreases. So, one of the bigger increases came in additional fold-up patching. If we recall, we discussed in the past that the concrete in the last block, a quarter of the last block, was higher than anticipated for some inexplicable reason, and we changed our construction technique in a quarter of that block. So it all ended up being full depth patching, and we had some additional utility work that we hadn't anticipated, and that increased the amount of full depth patching needed. We found a defective storm sewer that properly addressed while we were in there, so we didn't have future problems. That resulted in some additional full depth patching and that sort of thing. We ended up taking down a few trees that we originally hadn't anticipated. There was roughly $7,000 for getting those trees out of there. We added the new flashing beacons for the school speed zone. That was $22,000, I think. And many of these items were really big numbers, but they add up here. So I'd like to tell you, we did have several underruns, but unfortunately, they weren't big dollar items. So that is where the project has come to. It represents about, I think, a 28% increase over the original contract amount.
So one thing we need to do is approve the change order.
The funding for the change.
Funding for the change order.
Yes.
Do I hear a motion to approve the change order?
I guess I'm hesitant. After we approve the funding for the change order, will there be any money owed to the contractor?
This will pay out the entire contract amount.
My concern then is and I'm not trying, I guess maybe I am trying to argue about it, is that we paid for a premium project that lot of reasons to end up being preview. Now, I know they've gone back over it and they've heated it, and I've driven down it, the road's smoother than it was. In my mind, it's not the same quality as we thought. And although, and I've known you for a number of years, and I truly trust your judgment, I am very concerned about the durability of it. We have a 1-year warranty on the work, I understand.
Yes, sir.
Would it be feasible to get an extended warranty on that?
On
On the workmanship and the durability of the road?
the entire project or on the areas that were repaired?
The roadway, basically. The rest of the project, I think the sidewalks and everything else are fine.
On the pavement,
The durability of the roadway.
with the pavement. Roadway is a term that can be interpreted.
The durability of the product, the part of the street that I drive down in my car.
The black part.
And when does that, I second to his question is, when does that warranty begin? Did it begin last month when they paved it? Did it begin this week when they finished the patching?
I would say it'll begin when we make final payment.
Now answer his part, sorry.
Sorry.
I said, now answer his part.
We can ask for that. I don't know what the response may be.
I don't know how David or Jody feel about it. I would rather have a special meeting to approve paving.
I have no objection to that.
Me neither. I do have a, I guess maybe, I don't know, more statement or a question. I always appreciate that you're very careful with your wording. I think I honor that. I'm not. Today you explained that they're in general compliance. To me, general compliance is kind of like the commercial that's out right now where the guy says this is a good surgeon and they're all like, well, he's okay. I've never from the get-go of starting this project wanted an okay project. I don't like attaching my name to something that in the future I'm going to be disappointed in. That's why I insisted as a committee of one we fix the sidewalks that they didn't finish in the first part of the project. Do you think, is to you general compliance just okay? Could they have done better? It's a local company. He's a commissioner that owns it, and I'm disgusted at the way he's treated us. And that's just a general opinion, but is it just okay? And this is me asking, I guess, your opinion.
It generally meets the specifications. I keep using the word generally. There's a few areas that are outdated a little bit.
But like last month, you were very proud of the project. You were very proud of, I mean, we were very happy when we came in here, and I don't feel like that's the tone now. And I don't think that was the tone when I left on vacation last month, and I don't think that's been the tone since. I've been very vocal on Facebook about how proud of the project I am, and that I'm sorry that it took so long for the citizens, but we were insisting that we did it right. And everything was done right till this last month. And then it seems rushed and not to how we specified. For $1.3 million, I feel like we should have got perfect. Especially from somebody that lives here, drives the roads, and says he's a steward of our county. Sorry, I'm on a high horse right now.
Are you looking for an answer from me or?
I don't know at this point. It's disappointing, and I guess I would love them to be there. I would like to have a special meeting, and I would like someone representing the company to be there to explain this stuff to us, where we're disappointed, because they did go over in time with our extension contract. And I'm assuming, I mean, it was my understanding that they kind of owe us back for that.
There is provisions in the contract for liquidated damages. However, as I indicated, the contract amount increased by roughly 28%. I believe, and I was going to study this today and I didn't, but I believe the contract documents provides for additional time when the amount of work increases. So if you add, let's say 28% of days for the original contract, they're well under that now.
If we don't approve this change order this evening, the Board of Works will still take it up.
Yes, but I would feel a whole lot better going to them saying that you all have agreed to pay this additional cost, rather than go to them and say, hey, sign this extra work agreement, but the financial arm of the city in this case hasn't endorsed that.
Is one of the items on the change order,
Guy named Adric.
All right.
is one of the things on the change order, one of the things that you've told us need to be finished, that haven't been done yet? Like, are we paying for something that
No.
we haven't done yet?
No, the remediation is not anything that's paid for directly. The remediation of work that's previously been completed is not something that we should or will pay for.
We could approve this change order and then just not approve paying the final bill yet,
Yes, you could do that.
and do that at a special
You can
meeting.
agree to the funding
For
up to
this
whatever.
change order?
Yeah.
Do we have, have they given us an estimate of when they think they will be complete with the project?
I believe that, I want to say the end of next week at the worst, maybe a little bit quicker than that.
So the Board of Works meets the first Monday of June, and then,
And our next meeting wouldn't technically be till the
Yeah.
21st.
well, I think if
20th?
we don't do anything, I think we do want to have a special meeting. We could have a meeting that evening or another night that week.
Again, we are anxious to issue the check so we can get the check back, so we can get to the state.
But as they are local, I'm assuming this is a check we could drive to them and ask
Actually,
them to take
over
to
in
the bank?
Indianapolis, Globe
Okay.
is not locally owned, it's owned out of Indianapolis.
Okay, fair enough.
And we would do that, but, I mean, in Indianapolis, if that's what it takes to move that process forward, we'll run it up there. I'm not anxious to try and stampede a decision here. I'm just trying to keep the big picture in mind.
I guess part of me is concerned that projects like this always has, and I know there's very good reasons for it. And now we're down to the last month. And I understand about the CCMG funds and getting this paid so we can move forward with that. I don't in any way want Lincoln Street to suffer because of the CCMG funds. And so I guess I am feeling pressure to go ahead and sign that.
Please remember that in addition to the retainage that you currently hold that we're asking to be released, there is also a performance bond that stays in place for 2 years. So there is an additional avenue if our contractor doesn't perform up to the terms of the contract, there is an avenue there to seek further relief from the resolution of any issues that arise.
Is that a performance bond with the contractor posted?
Yes. Did I misstate that, Chris? Correct.
I think I'm more even hesitant to go into that route just because of the history of the contractor's businesses. And I would say that on a financial stand of the history of the business. And I don't want to throw out anything. I don't want to overstep my words. I'm kind of trying to mate it right now, but that, but I've heard several things before we even contracted in the business years ago as a media person. So I think any kind of, I'm comfortable with doing the work order today, but I would like to see the final definitely don't want to throw the city for not receiving any more CCMG grants or whatever, blah, 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 because I have loved the improvement that has happened over the last couple of years.
I'm sorry, Joe, did you say you would be comfortable with the change order
Yes,
now?
yes, but not the final payment.
Hold on the payment portion.
Hold off the final payment. I would like to see the project finished. I want to see it that it's done and that we're somewhat satisfied by that, and maybe be able to still speak to the contractor or whoever before we say, here's your check. Great job. High five.
Would you want to make a motion to that effect to approve the change order?
Yes, I make
To
a
approve
motion.
the funding for the change.
To approve the funding for the change, sorry.
I make a motion that we approve the funding for change order number 5 to be sent to Warworks.
Second.
Thank you, Ken. Any further discussion? Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Thank you. While we're on this topic, when would you like to hold a special meeting to approve the claim?
What time's the Board of Works meet on?
Board of Works meets at 5,
5,
and the council will meet at 7.
7?
The Board of Works typically lasts
Half hour,
usually,
unless I haven't seen the agenda yet.
unless there's something controversial.
that would take it longer this next 15 days?
I would think you could pretty comfortably meet at 6.
I mean, whatever we're only take 15 minutes, so if we have to delay it, because that'd be okay.
Right.
I'm good with that.
I think that
It's June 3rd.
This is for
Yeah.
Thank you. And so we'll meet at 6.
Does that work okay for you, Ken?
I think that works for me.
Yes, for me.
Monday, June 3rd.
6 o'clock.
Okay.
Do you feel comfortable with the June 3rd?
I sort of felt comfortable with this deal, so.
If I gotta drive the check for you, I'll do it. I'll volunteer my money so we don't have to use tax that.
You just want to ride around your new Jeep.
So we hit the final payment, which we just won't consider this evening, right?
Correct.
Not to beat a dead horse, I am disappointed, and Jody's expressed it too, that the contractors never see fit to be in any of our meetings, even when we do their issues. Whether he was invited or not, he's a member of the community. I would have hoped and thought that in that position, he would come and at least put in his input. It's just my.
I will try and remember to extend a special invitation to this next meeting.
That shouldn't be necessary, but I appreciate that.
Well,
And we definitely are not saying anything against your reports. You do a wonderful job. It shouldn't just, our questions shouldn't only fall on your hands.
and, you know, there are things that I cannot speak for the contractor, so. I have my ideas about how it should work.
All right. Thank you, sir.
While I'm here, Ashley had sent out an email to all of you, I believe, concerning appropriations. I'm going to do something that I'm certainly not qualified to do, but it really didn't hold me back too much. I'm going to talk about financial stuff just a little bit. You have a little over $1 million in cash in your 802 account, but you have, I think, about $380,000 of that appropriated right now. And I'm assuming that if and when this claim is approved, that will come from 802, and that will be the number $302,000, $303,000. And you've got a couple of other claims tonight that I'm aware of that's going to be maybe another $30,000. I don't know. So, you know, your roughly $380,000 appropriated balance is going to get down to I can't do the math in my head. 50,000, I think, something like that. So you probably want to go to council and ask for an additional appropriation in some fashion that is broad enough that anything you're going to do, that money could be used for.
Could that be done at the council's June meeting?
I believe that requires 2 readings of an ordinance for an additional appropriation, and because money's involved, it can't be a suspension of the rules. So you would probably want to have an ordinance at council in June on first reading. I don't know that you're in a desperate situation, but pretty soon, $50,000 can go away. So,
Do you know if the $3,000-ish, $100,000 that we have appropriated, does that include our bond payment that's due in July?
I don't know. I don't know what.
Because we'd be paying that in July.
Mm-hmm.
Do we receive our funding biannual?
Oh, yes.
I honestly don't know exactly how all this works, but I do understand the
Right.
concept of appropriations versus cash. And I would think you want to appropriate
Give us all the
$700,000. I mean, that's kind of what you got left. If that could be done in a way where you have a lot of latitude in expending it, then it's going to give you as much freedom probably as anything.
Okay.
So if we did it June, if we approached the council for June and then they second vote in July, that would put us in a safe zone for the bond payment by our meeting, middle of
It's
the
July
month.
15th is when the bond payment is made first.
I can't envision this as a controversial kind of matter. You have money.
We have the obligation.
Yes.
All right, well, we have 2 claims, and they're related to Phase 2 of Veterans Way in relocation expense for Village Community Partners. We have one in the sum of $25,000 to Village Community Partners relocation services, and then another one from the same company for $939.92. So we have two separate claims to pay. I'd entertain a motion that we pay those out of our 802. Thank you. Ken, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jody. Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Looks like that takes us pretty well to the end of our agenda. We'll have our next special meeting on Monday, June 3rd at 6 o'clock. Thank you all.